Welcome to From the Gut, an unscripted conversation centered on spiritual health and human values. I'm your host, George Grant, from the Woodruff Health Sciences Center at Emory University. Our topic for Series 1 is Joy at Work. And our special guest today is Jimmy Lee, who is Director of Respiratory Therapy at the Emory Johns Creek Hospital here in Georgia. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So glad that you can be with us today. And we are very excited to learn more about you and for you to be able to speak to, those particulars of your work life that make it meaningful for you.
Sure.
Before we get there, though, tell us a little bit about your role, your overarching responsibilities.
Sure. So I am the director for respiratory care, the sleep lab, PFTs, and EEG. So I manage the overall operations of these departments to make sure that they're running smoothly, make sure that we're staffed okay, we recruit. I think one of my biggest responsibilities is making sure I'm supporting my staff and being a resource to them, especially through times like COVID. So we have a broad description in our job, but I think most of all is to be there for my team.
So here, three things I hear out of that. Things hoped for in terms of going smoothly, staff support, and a resource for your team.
Right.
Those are admirable values that you have about your role. And we want to sort of tease some things out about that. So what's it like when things are not going smoothly for you, Jimmy?
Well, I think you really got to look at things in perspective. For us, we're in this role for a reason. We're here to take care of patients. And you look at the perspective of the patient, they don't want to be here either. So I think we have to keep that in mind, know what we're here for. We're here to provide the best care that we can, make them comfortable, show sympathy, be compassionate to one another, and ultimately take care of these patients. I think it's important to see and make sure that these patients are comfortable in their most vulnerable times.
Absolutely. And I think one of those things that you've already mentioned, just in terms of being there and making sure the patients are comfortable, and the use of the word compassion. We're fond of that word in spiritual health. And I'm wondering, just take that a little further. Tell us what compassion is like for you. What does that feel like?
That's a good question. I think compassion means, for me, knowing how your patients are feeling and wanting to be there to make it better for them, in simple terms. I'll tell you a story. This happened to me a few years ago, where a mom reached out to me via Facebook. I was at home, and I just started getting a bunch of text messages that said, "Hey, you need to look on Facebook. There's somebody looking for you." And I looked on Facebook, and sure enough, there was a picture of me, and a lady had requested, does anybody know this gentleman? He's saved my son a couple of years ago, and I would like to thank him and show him my son. And I did reach out to her, and she wanted me to thank her. She wanted to thank me for being there for her, and not only taking care of her son, but also for being there, being at the bedside with her, and making sure that she's comfortable, and anything that she needed, I was right there for her. Um, the funny thing was that, you know, we come across these incidences so often that I really had no clue who she was. It
Right.
happens so often, and I think you have to have that personality, that compassion for every single patient that comes through these doors.
Mm. Oh, that's great. So um, everyone gets treated the same. And
Correct, correct.
so I really appreciate what you're saying about the act of compassion. That most of the time it's not what we say, it's how we appear and how we are felt to be. If we're
Absolutely.
comfortable with ourselves, right, we're better able to help facilitate comfort in the other person. Is that what you're finding true?
Absolutely. That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. Um, thank you for that story. I think we sometimes don't know how powerful our personhood is, and in these moments, as you say, there are thousands and thousands of patients,
Right.
but you might be the most important piece of that person's healthcare at any one moment, and it sounds like you're dialed into that, and I get from you that it feels like a mission accomplished, that there is a felt sense of self-compassion that comes from being with patients in their most trying hour.
Absolutely. I think that, and not just for me, but for my team, I think that's why we're here. I think when we know that we're here for a reason, a purpose, and that we're making an impact in someone's life, not just by taking care of their health, but taking care of them and their needs, then it's rewarding, and it's just it's gratifying to know that you're there for someone.
Yes, it goes a long way towards healing, right?
Correct.
Beyond the conventional treatments that we're so prepared in and we expertly administer. So I like to say that compassion is good medicine. That it's a part of what you say about whole person health, and so I feel that sense of enjoyment coming from you, and being able to be a part of that work. Um, One of the things that caused us to talk about joy at work on this show has to do with my own curiosity about the sort of the tedious, mundane things in our role that we sometimes, resist or push against. And then in retrospect, we think, okay, well, that was purposeful. There was a reason why I needed to be a part of a particular discipline or routine or things of that nature. And I'm wondering if you have some insight or even a story. You're a good storyteller. About that, even if it's something that you're not so proud of.
Well, I mean, I, I, our jobs, absolutely. There's times where it's mundane, and we feel that we can do better. But I think anytime we get that patient, it reminds us. Once we see that the treatment plan works and the patient has recovered, it brings us back to that joy and knowing that we've been there for that patient. So, you know, we have emergencies, and we have these times like this where we're stressed out, and we feel overworked. But when we see the results of a patient coming around, it makes it all worth it.
So it sounds like perhaps in the moment it may feel sort of disconnected
Right.
from being about meaningful care, but in retrospect, you look at the outcomes and you think, okay, there was something about the way we are with our patients that does make a difference. And I'm curious as to if you've ever been on the other end of that, maybe as a patient yourself or a person that is seeking care, and what it's like for you to have that kind of applied compassion coming in your direction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it makes a world of difference. My wife was in a hospital when we delivered our second child, and she had complications,
Mm.
and just the uncertainty of what's going to happen, it brings you to another emotional mood. And just having that compassionate healthcare worker, nurse, doctor be there for you and kind of explain things step by step. It means the world when you're in that situation.
Mm.
So I think from experience and through experience in general, I think you kind of learn how to be compassionate as well, because you want the same thing for your family members.
Right. So you brought your family in, and so you can't help but think about your own life outside of your work. But there are pieces of our lives, right, that influence who we are and cause us to be joy loving and compassionate people. And I'm wondering, are there some examples in your own story or in your current life right now that influence who you are as this kind of person that works at Emory Johns Creek?
Um, I think overall experiences in life, your background, all of that determines the attitude that you want to take every day. Um, I've had rough times like everybody else, but I think your attitude is the only thing that you can change, that determines your approach to life, to things, to circumstances, to hardships. Um, I came from I'm a child of immigrants, and my perspective is that you know things can be very difficult, and and um, and times can be hard, but if you stick with it with a positive attitude, and be grateful for what you have, things eventually turn around to where you want it to be. My parents, we weren't, we weren't wealthy or anything like that. We worked hard, um, worked in a worked in a mom and pop business, at a restaurant, and we see things in a different perspective. I think it's important to look at all perspectives, and know it could be worse, but you should be grateful for what we have, and you know just be change that attitude.
Right. And you mentioned your parents, so I always follow leads like that.
Okay.
So, are there, uh, there there are moments of experience with your parents, or is there some sort of core values that you take with you because of how you were raised?
Yeah, I think so. It's the words of my dad and my mom. They weren't very, like I mentioned, they weren't very wealthy or anything like that. But they would, if someone needed it, they would take their own shirts and give it to the next person. I think you need to be kind, and need to maybe be selfless, and be one of those, be a selfless person, and giving to others. And usually when you help others, it gives you somewhat of a joy as well. So uh, I don't know. I think it's hard to explain, but I think when you're selfless and when you give to others and when you're passionate to others and you serve others, um, that will bring you a kind of gratification and joy.
Right. Generosity leaps out into what you're talking about.
Right.
And my assumption, my speculation is that because I sense you to be a generous person, you're more at ease about seeing that in other people and even pointing it out to another person. That would be my guess. Do you ever hear that words of appreciation for you being able to see yourself in another person?
I don't look for it. It's not something I try to stay humble. I try to, serve my team, serve people. I'm not really looking for uh, any um, anything to what's the word for it?
Well, to celebrate,
Yeah, I'm not looking for anything, any acknowledgement of what
accolade,
I'm here for.
right?
But I do think it's is beneficial for your team um, to see that you're there for them. You're a leader for them. You're a servant for them, and just always be there for them for support.
Right. Uh, Tell me a little bit about how you gain a sense of support for you. So oftentimes, if we're a generous type of person, we're so serving others that it's easy to lose track or get off track in terms of you know making sure that we have compassion for ourselves.
Sure, uh, I count my blessings every day. Um, I count my blessings at home. I count my blessings here. I'm proud of my team that I have, just to see what they go through day in and day out, day out. Um, and you just gotta count your blessings. When I go home, I know what I'm working for. I see my kids. Just the little things brings me joy. So I think it's important to see those things and know what you're working for and not get burnt out. Um,
It seems to me like you do that kind of accounting for yourself on a regular basis, and it helps to drown out maybe some sort of the negativity that might creep in from time to time.
it does. It
Uh,
does.
well, speaking of negativity, I bring these things up because of my own curiosity. Um, we all have that, right? We all have voices that from who we are as individuals that are sometimes self-punitive and and want to eat away at our celebration of self or our generosity for others. And I'm wondering, when those things come up for you, how you combat them.
Well, I think it takes, you got to be intentional, right? I think you have to be intentional to want to be positive. And I think when you're intentional and you repetitively think in your head, I think it just alters your mindset
Hmm.
of always wanting to be a positive person. Um, like I mentioned before, we all go through things, bad and good. But the way you look at things and your mindset, that's 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 what what determines how you're going to handle those hardships.
Hmm.
So not saying that I don't have those times of negativity, but I think more and more, if you're intentional about looking at the bright side, then it can change you. It can change the way you act, the way you react to things, and hopefully, uh, improve your lifestyle.
Right. Um, I play at sports, and perhaps you have too. And as you know, there's sometimes a good thing in terms of routine, a pre-routine, uh, that you want to make sure that you hang on to so that you don't slip out of safety or the ability to perform at your best. And you mentioned repetition. So it seems to me that you have the sense of calm within yourself, but you've gotten into a vocal pattern, maybe internally, that says, I've got this. And I'm wondering, are you conscious of that? And do you have like a strategic phrase that comes to mind?
Well, I do. And I think it's simple. And I don't know where I saw it, but it always comes into my head that everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And it really doesn't do any good to worry and complain and be negative about things. Everything is going to be okay. You just stick with it, stick with the right attitude, and everything's going to be okay.
Well, I love that. I think if we can do more of that, the world's a better place, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and particularly, we're still in the midst of the pandemic, and it's only getting worse. We're here, going into the winter. And, I want to say to you that I've learned a lot today, just in terms of how important it is for us to have within us, simple speech. Talking to ourselves is a good thing, but also talking to others is a good thing too. And sharing our concerns or sharing things of our life so that we're not, carrying this heavy weight. And I'm wondering if you've found value in that as well. Maybe it's a friend or a community, and how you are bolstered and become even more resilient and more compassionate because you've got an offloading ramp or you've got a landfill for yourself.
Well, working with a group of therapists who, they don't always have it easy. We work in a challenging environment where there's high stress and things don't always go the way they want. So I do my part. I try to do my part. I try to sit down with everybody, and I want to let them know that they're supportive. They're supported. One of the things that we try to keep it positive in here is we celebrate things, holidays, obviously, birthdays, kudos to just simple things that, even though it's part of their jobs, we like to give recognition, knowing that they're here for a reason, and that even though it's something that they do that's part of their jobs, that we appreciate them being here and taking care of those people. I think when you talk with folks, when you talk with my team, they can see that I do that, that it's intentional, that even though I know they're having bad days, I try to bring them up and lift them up and know that they're appreciated.
Well, certainly I want to recognize you and the value that you bring to Emory Johns Creek Hospital, and most certainly as a parent and a spouse and a leader on your team. And thank you so much for sharing from your heart about what it's like for you and your work life. And I wish you all the best, Jimmy. Thank you for joining us on From the Gut.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.